Peace, family. I just wanted to come on here real quick and speak to you about the fact that one thing that I have learned, um, like when you work for the Most High, like when you like step out on faith and you decide that you have services that you want to offer people. Um, one thing that we've probably all learned is like friends and family are not gonna support you. And I know that sounds kind of fucked up to just say that like that, but like it's true. But it's not because they don't love you or care about you. It's because I mean sometimes they don't, you know what I mean? But like I don't think that's what it is. I just think that you have to get energy from the spaces where the energy is supposed to flow. Um what I mean by that is like say if you have a hair care business but everybody in your family is bald. Okay. So you can't get mad at your family for not buying your hair care products when they don't have any use for them. If they did buy them, it would just be strictly off of their relationship with you, but not because of their relationship with what you offer. And a lot of times, that's the situation that we find ourselves in where we feel like, we're not being supported by the people who are closest to us, especially on social media. But you have to understand that, like, unless you've built your followers or whatever, your content base based on what you actually do, if it's the people from your high school, college, job, stuff like that, it is going to be very difficult to kind of get beyond them to the people that you really are trying to reach, who would really like vibe with what you're actually doing. So another thing that I've learned with this is that you could say like that you want support, like even if we're not talking about family. um a lot of people, in the business space or just in that entrepreneur space, you'll hear them say, please support, or well, maybe not everywhere. In certain communities, I've definitely I've heard that quite a bit. Please support. And well, it's like that energy of support, of supporting this business, supporting this endeavor, this plan, this whatever it is. It's kind of based off a clique mentality, because the reason that you are being supportive or being supported doesn't have anything to do with actually like what you do and what you offer. It has to do with who you are and who you know. And so the support is a support of like guilt, of like pressure. What's the word I'm looking for? Perfunctory, but that's not obligation, obligatory, right? It's like obligatory support. Like you owe me this because by virtue that we went to the same college, because by virtue that we are in the same sorority or fraternity, because we've worked at the same job, like, and you'll feel personal about it, like I can't believe I worked with them for 5 years and then they wouldn't share my post about da da da. But it's like, yes, people do love us, right? We love each other, we care about each other, we want to see each other do well. um but at the same time, and I said this in the previous video, it is just very difficult for people to see each other outside of the boxes that we have each other, for one, have each other in, for one. And for two, even if you do see someone outside of the box, even if you do in your mind allow that people can change, or even if people in their mind, they do allow that you can change, or you can be a different person, and you're doing this job today but tomorrow you're starting this business, or you're talking about this today but tomorrow you're talking about that. Even if people could like make that leap with you, or even if you could make that leap with other people, it still begs the question of like, okay, but once I do, how useful is this to me? Because then it becomes a question of usefulness and still not support. So if it's a question of like you have something that you want to offer and you feel like it's just hard to crack through You know, like the people who you might feel like you share a post and nobody likes it or nobody shares it or nobody comments on it, and you just kind of you get that feeling, right? Like it's like almost like these people are looking at you, like you know that people see you, but that they just choose not to engage with this new version of you. But they're still there, right? And that can feel very like that's an energy. It's like a wall. It's like a block. Like they haven't blocked you, but they're still blocking you. You still feel the energy of the blocking because it's not. But again, it's not. That's not their fault. It's the fault of you are operating as your new self in an old reality, surrounded by people who are not going to give you permission to change because that's not their job. Okay. So, what I have found works for me is to, instead of thinking about it like I want support from this clique, I have to, I have found, and this is just a side note, but I have found that, like, with manifestation, with switching your reality, you have to figure out a way to make yourself the thing that you think that you are seeking. So in this case, if I would say to myself, I am seeking support, the way that I would switch that reality is I would say, I am support. Okay? I am support. I am supportive. So, even if you flip that, right, it doesn't look like, okay, I'm supportive. Now I'm going to go out and support a bunch of other people's businesses because I want people to do the same for me. No, that's not what the fuck I'm talking about. Because it's still a matter of usefulness. And you really may not be able to use what other people are offering. And that's real and that's okay. The way that I mean when I say I look at it like, okay, I'm support, is I decide how I'm going to help. Like, you have to switch your focus. The quickest way to help yourself is to figure out how to help someone else with the same problem that you have, or with problems that you have had and figured out. Okay, so if I have a reading business and I've written books about how to teach people how to read, but my whole family and friend group knows how to read, so they don't really need this shit, okay? They would be buying the books or talking about the books strictly to benefit me, like strictly on the love of me, strictly on the clique mentality, like, man, you're my sorority sister, or you're my friend, or you're my partner, you're my lover, whatever, so I'm going to share this because I love you. But it's still the resonance of it, the energy of it is like an energy of placation. It's surface energy, so it's really not going to reach that vein, like that vein of the universe where it will travel to, you know, where it needs to be. So the way that you do that is, instead of saying, okay, it's cool if your friends and family share it or whatever, even though they can read, it's fine. It's cool if they're proud of you and they love what you're doing. But in order to really reach the people that you're trying to reach, you have to say, okay, how do I reach the people that can't read? Right? That's the people who you have to figure out how to reach. But even before that, you have to make sure that you have a product or a purpose that is designed and pointed towards those who have problems that you have solved or that you are solving. And that's not to say you couldn't be successful doing something else, but it's to say success is not linear. It has ups and downs, ebbs and flows. So it's going to need an energy sometimes to sustain it when it can't sustain itself, when it's faltering. Okay. And if the energy is just based on surface, like, well, I wanted money, I wanted attention, I wanted people to be proud of me, I wanted to be visible, I wanted to be famous, I wanted to be comfortable, like, all these are all very surface things. And so when things get hard, when people don't give a fuck that you're doing something new or that you're, you know, trying to create a different reality by yourself and reinvent yourself and reintroduce yourself when people don't care, when they don't give you permission to do that. You need it to be self-sustaining. And so the only way to do that is to make it come from yourself, from the humanity in you. And that you have to tap into that humanity that feels pleasure and joy from knowing that you have made the world a better place simply by virtue of what you have experienced and the wisdom that you have gained from it and the way that it can help other people. And sometimes this does require like a certain amount of vulnerability that, you know, you're not willing to do. And that's real and that's okay, but you have to acknowledge that and like try to work through that. Because that's probably the space where people need you the most. Because it's the things that people talk about the least that there's the least amount of information and help on. You understand? And a lot of times people be going through the same things and they could stop going through it if somebody would be brave enough to share what they have learned. But again, we're talking about that clique mentality, right? If you start talking about this shit, if you start talking about your deepest, darkest, whatever, because you feel like it can help somebody else, or you develop a product based on problems that you know people have, but maybe these are poor people problems and you don't want people to know that you used to be poor, you know, whatever the issue is, you don't want to identify yourself with that anymore. Or you don't want to identify yourself with that in front of other people who you feel like wouldn't be proud of you if they knew that. These are all things that like that requires courage. Like but see, that courage, that's fire, and that is self-sustaining. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. I think that was really all I wanted to say. Yeah, I think that was all I wanted to say. Okay, thank y'all for listening, and peace.